Perfect.
Learn something new. All right. Since Instagram didn't want us to work, that is totally fine because Instagram and Instagramming. So I'm excited to actually talk to you about all kind of things because you're a branding designer, correct?
Yeah, brand strategist and art director, and I do design as well.
Okay, awesome. So one question I do have, because I am a graphic designer by trade, I went to school for that. And one of the things that I know, it's been a long time since I've been to school, they did not teach us about accessibility. Is that the same for you?
So I actually went to school for English and sociology. And so
Ooh,
I'm self-taught. And this is not like accessibility in design is not talked about enough. Like it's not talked about, I feel like on like Skillshare, it's not talked about oftentimes in books. I've got other designer friends in my network who did go to school for design, not really talked about there. Like it's really kind of hush hush and under the rug, which is very interesting given how important it is. You
yeah.
know, like I feel like it's an afterthought for a lot of people. And it shouldn't be.
So how, if you could share, how did you actually learn how about accessibility per se?
Yeah. So for me, I've been learning kind of piecemealed,
Right,
right? Where I'll meet someone who brings something up. And it's one of those things, right, where you don't know what you don't know
right,
until someone brings it to your attention, which is also why I'm so excited that we're having this conversation, because I know that like you know so much about it and you're actually creating a really freaking awesome
yeah,
like tool and product and service to help with this. So for me, it's been like, what can I learn on blogs? You know, like
right,
what tools can I find? I know like color is a really big one. And so I'll type in like whenever I'm doing like color combos, because in the brand
right,
guidelines I create for people, I talk a lot about like here's the colors that you can use like in
right.
combinations and do not use these other ones. And so like
And
I'll
how
use
often do they follow that?
they oh my god, do not even get me started. Do not even get me
There's
started.
only so much you can do.
Yep,
Right,
there's only so much you can do. But yeah, I'll put it in to an online checker even of like, okay, like is this passing or failing the test? And before that, like I didn't even know that existed, and so I was only doing like the colorblind test,
right,
and it's like, wait, this isn't enough, you know? And
right.
so again, it's why I was so excited when you talked about what you were creating, because it is so important. And then we think about too, like how many businesses right now are being sued as well online for like digital accessibility. And it's just like, in my opinion, that's really predatory because people aren't being taught. Like you can punish people, yes, but like you also like teach them how to do better too, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
And that hasn't been an issue with me because like the reality is the American Disabilities Act is only 32 years old, 32, 33, one of those ages. So it's younger than me. So, and the American Disabilities Act is also not caught up to the technology level. So there's definitely levels of this where we struggle with it because it is something that really like frustrates me because when I started trying to like teach myself about digital accessibility because most of my accessibility had to do with the physical stuff. That's
mhm.
what I need. The digital accessibility I didn't really need until I wanted to start learning from other people. And I was like, that was a huge barrier for me because I need caption. Caption are very
Mhm.
important to me. So, and I started trying to learn about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And I'm like, how do I expect all these small business owners who are wearing so many hats? They're doing all the things. You're doing your own accounting, you're doing your own marketing, you're copywriting, you're designing, you're doing all these things, and I expect you to learn about accessibility. No. That's like asking the impossible of the impossible. So like that's why I created Successible, because I wanted something that was really create. I think I might be biased, but I think it's really cool how the tool works.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things, like you said, where like when we think about accessibility, oftentimes we think about it in the physical space.
Right.
And because like that's where we see it. We've seen, various like ramps, and even then too, when you think about it, like how poorly done so many of those are. Like I've seen
Right.
some, right, like what are we doing? But then in the digital space, it's a like not even on people's radars
No.
of what they should be doing. And like I love that you bring up that the ADA, like it hasn't caught up at all. Like it's still so far behind the regulations are with the technology. So something I'm really curious about, and like how you were learning about this and when
Mhm.
you started kind of developing this tool, what were the key things you had in mind of like, I want to address this problem. I want to make sure that people understand like this specific concept. What did that thought process look like for you?
So, like for me, I wanted to understand. First of all, selfishly, I wanted to figure out how to add caption to video. Like that was like the number one thing where I was like, I don't know how to do it. Like, and I expect that the course creators know how to do it. But then I started realizing the way people learn. That's like where
Mhm.
I started figuring out accessibility was like, oh, we don't all learn the same. My husband learned by audio. I learned by visual.
Mhm.
So that was like an interesting like contrast. I was like, okay. And I tried to start teaching myself through these different platforms. But the problem was none of it was easy to understand because if I'm being honest, the web content accessibility guidelines start off with this concept that's called the poor concept. Poor, like POUR. I still can't figure that out. Like my brain kind of breaks on how that is structured because it's weird because accessibility is supposed to be easy. So I basically set out on a mission to break down accessibility to a point where it was easy in plain language. And that's how it should be. The other thing I don't want to forget is the European Accessibility Act was launched last year in 2025. So they are ahead of the curve. They already have a lot of things. So I'm kind of trying to do some of the stuff based on their rules because I feel like they're ahead of the curve.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more about that in particular. What about the European one is ahead of the American one? I mean, like, I'm not surprised whatsoever, right? But like, what's the difference there? Like, what gap and kind of advantage are they having?
Well, if we think about it, the European Accessibility Act is really primarily focused on the digital piece. We don't really have anything in the US that is fully embedded in the digital piece. So that's where they're already way ahead of the game is like they're requiring everything that is digital to be built with accessibility in mind. So like that's not where we are in the US. But if you're a small business owner, your business is going to reach the world naturally easily. You're not just focused on people in your location. So that's where you need to kind of also start looking at the European Accessibility Act as well. Like I need to dig in further for that as well. But like I'm trying to focus on the most basic thing because what I've created is for creators, it's not for developers, but creators,
Mhm.
because you're not necessarily coding, you're not creating all these things, you're just putting together basic stuff. Like you're putting together an email, you're updating your website, you are putting out your podcast, you are creating a course. None of this requires fancy coding, right? So that's like what I'm trying to focus on is being able to fix the easy stuff. And that's going to improve greatly.
So something I'm curious about is like, we talked about how small business, like you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things. It can be really overwhelming to add in this additional, hey, BT dubs, make sure you're thinking about this too. So what are ways then that as a small business owner, you can start making your online presence more accessible? So we talked about the captions, which I feel you. I'm also a visual learner. And I was so thrilled when like Slack and Instagram started allowing the voice notes to transcribe.
And they don't charge you for it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Like, I know there are people out there who just love sending the voice notes. And I'm like, I need to see this. I need to be able to read it. I need to be able to go back and reference it. Like, I need to be able to consume it when I feel best to do so. And so like thinking about captions as like a really key one, but what are some of the other things that business owners need to think about? We talked about color a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Color contrast is like the number one thing. It's where like last week I was asking people permission if I could go on their website and run my tour. So that's the key. I asked them, I got their consent to do that. You're not supposed to do it without consent. So I ran it and I'm just like, color contrast is one of those things that I'm just like, ooh, like, if you just fixed it, it would just like knock you, like you would pass the accessibility standards. The other one is heading in websites. I also want to say Google Docs. Like if you're not using the heading level that is set up in Google Docs, you're not doing it right. Because like I don't know about you, but I like to skim a doc to make sure what's in there. Like that is something that is so ingrained for me from grade school, like the outline structure. I love the outline structure. It helps people kind of be able to process this information before they have to read the whole thing. It helps people who use screen readers to be able to like listen to, okay, this is what's on this website. Like, otherwise, it would just read the whole website and might be pointless for them to like have to hear every word over and over again. Like, you don't want that. You want them to be able to go on your website, be told what is on that website, and then you can pick where they want to go. And then that will save them so much time. So heading is the big thing for sure.
Well, I think that it's so helpful too in you explaining this because so many people, and including me, like I was like, I don't really understand how a screen reader works. And so like hearing that, okay, it's going to go through, read the headlines, and then allows you to pick what section you want to go to. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, please. I know that I would be going crazy if I had to sit there and listen through an entire website because that wasn't labeled out. Like we don't think about these things, I think, a lot of the time because the tools, we don't understand how the tools work.
Right.
Like I even think about when accessibility ramps were put in place. I'm pretty sure I was reading, oh my gosh, where was I reading this? But like, it wasn't even created for like people in like wheelchairs and things. It was created because they needed to move like products into buildings more easily.
I love that.
Like what? And so hearing, I think like one of the keys here is helping people understand like what these tools do. Because I know for me, like I'm a very much like a big picture followed by examples. Like let me understand an example of how this works, and then I can kind of piece it together. And so hearing, like this is what screen readers do, it becomes a no-brainer of why you need to be building things that way. And so with that in mind, I'd love for you to talk about the color contrast as well. So people, because again, people are like, what do you mean color contrast? Like, I can read it. but
Yeah.
like not everybody can. So can you kind of dive into
So with
that?
color contrast, like I love color. Like if you look in my house, there's lots of color. But the thing is, you need to, and one of my favorite is actually like tone on tone color, but it's not necessarily readable. So that's where you need to find making sure that your background and your text, it has enough contrast. So whoever is reading the content can actually understand it, because when we think about it, we have people who are colorblind. If and they can't. I always joke, and I was like, I always feel bad because red and green is the most common color contrast. That means they don't really enjoy Christmas like us. So they don't see like the clear distinction of red and green. And actually, I'm pretty sure that they can't drive either because the traffic lights are red and green. So those are the things. So one of the things I like to say to people, if you were to print your colorful design into black and white, that is the biggest secret that I would like to tell people is convert that to like grayscale. How much of that can you actually read? That can be what it's like for people who have color blindness in any formal way. There's some people that actually don't see color at all. And like our dog, they only see blue and yellow. That's it. So those are the little secrets. Is like, I'm not saying you have to take color away completely. No, we can still have color, but you just need to make sure that whatever the color with the background and the text, that part is readable. Like you can still have fun with your design. Like your shirt is very colorful. You can still have fun with that. That doesn't require any reading. Maybe not everybody sees the same colors, but if it has text in it, you need to make sure the contrast is readable.
And I think with this, the key thing too for anyone listening is yes, like you can still have color, have fun. I love that you brought up the gray scale so that they can see the contrast. But like guys, you want people to be able to read your stuff. Like you want customers to be able to read what it is you're writing. You spent all this time on this messaging and this copy, and it's not going to serve anybody if they can't read it because you don't have the right contrast. And so even if you feel like, oh, like this looks really fun, I see this a lot in color palettes where like they've got some really awesome colors, but then they start to mix them. And I'm like, guys, I can't even see it. Like,
Yeah.
how do you expect, like, what are we doing
Yeah.
here? You know? And I think that this is the key. Like, it's less about making it look quote pretty. And guys, like I love shit that looks pretty. Like I love color. I love all of it. But at the end of the day, that should not be your priority. The priority number one should
Readable.
be exactly, can this be read? Can my message be consumed? And then, okay, let's like make this look really nice on top of that. But if looking nice takes away from the ability to read it, like you're not serving your customers well, you're not serving the community well, but you're also not serving your business and brand well.
Right.
So I think that those are all really important to think about, where, you know, this isn't just about accessibility from a like customers looking in standpoint, but this is accessibility from brand reaching out as well. Like your goal is to have as many eyes, as many of the right eyes
Yeah.
on your stuff. So I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation, Erin, because I feel like it's something that just isn't talked about enough. And I know that when you shared, you know, the product that you're working on, I was like, this is what we need. Like people need to be talking about this.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you feel like in this conversation would be helpful for listeners with regards to accessibility and design and brand and the digital space?
The message I always send out to people is progress, not perfection. You're not going to get it right all in the first try. You're just not. And that is what is really important to me, is for people to not get overwhelmed with like, oh my God, I gotta go fix everything. If you are a brand designer, if you do all these websites, you might be internally freaking out, and that's okay. I kind of want you to freak out. You're like, okay, how do I fix this? All right, start by learning about each thing that you need to learn and start by fixing it. Go fix everything. But especially if the brands are active now, go and make sure that these are actually working together. And Successible will actually help you do that because it will help you find all the errors pretty quickly. Like I was doing a demo last week and like everybody was like, whoa. I was like, I know, it's so easy. You can fix it in like 5 minutes rather than taking like 2 hours to fix everything. So yeah.
Yeah, well, again, the progress over perfection, I think is so important because we've talked about over and over again in this conversation, the overwhelm that people experience. And it's really easy when you're like, oh my gosh, like I already put all this work in and now you're telling me I need to go back and redo it. Like to just be like, is it really that important? But like you created a tool to help with that, right? Like to make it easier, to make I guess to reduce the friction between where someone is and where we all want to be.
Yeah.
And that is so crucial in this process because there's learning associated with it too. And so when you talk about even what you saw like online where they had already kind of written like what the rules were and you were like, I don't even understand this. Like what are we, how do we expect other people to understand this? So I love that you are breaking down that barrier for people.
I will admit taking that test to like prove that I was competent, very efficient in accessibility. Like I struggled with that test and I was like, I'm disabled. If you're creating this barrier for me, how do I expect anybody else to learn? And that's why I was just like, we need to fix this. And that's why I'm like so passionate about like really supporting the small business owner because I don't want to make your life more difficult. I want to make it easy. So like that's where we're at with that. But I feel like this would help you as well, Hunt. Because like you're already doing all the things with creating a brand and you're doing strategy, but now if you have something that, do you feel like Successible will help you in a way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, any designer who is going to be working with, number one, creating brands for people, right? You're looking at color, any web designer who's going to be building websites, any person who's developing graphics needs to understand accessibility and legibility. Like it's not just for the business owner, but even thinking about too, like VAs, like designers need it, VAs need it, copywriters, if you're going in and adjusting things on the website, like there's so many pieces to this, right? That it should be, and I mean, in my personal opinion, I feel like this kind of thing should be embedded into website builders like Showit and WordPress. Yeah, like just make it part of those tools already. Genius. So, Erin, I am so excited to see where you take this because I feel like this is the kind of change that we need to be doing. And I love that you are like boots on the ground, getting it done. You saw an issue. You're like, no, we're going to solve this. And you've got a plan for how to then integrate it into the tools that people are using. So instead of it being an additional thing they've got to figure out, you're like, no, this is easy. All you've got to do is leverage this as part of this bigger ecosystem. So good. So good.
Now before we hop off, I want to talk about how we connected and why we are connected. So we're both going to be speaking at the Ordinary Summit. Can you tell people what you are going to be talking about at the Ordinary Summit happening April 1st to the 2nd?
Yeah, so I run a podcast. Obviously, I like asking questions. I've done this here. I asked Erin a bunch of questions. And so I run it solo. And so what I'm teaching about is how to run a podcast on your own, including one with guests, without it becoming your full-time job. Because as I said, like I'm a brand strategist and art director. Like that is my full-time job. And I do the podcast as a small piece of that. And so if you ever want to run a podcast, like know that you don't have to have all the bells and whistles. Like it is absolutely doable on your own. I film everything with my iPhone. Like check it out. Definitely check it out. And Erin, what about you?
I am going to be speaking about how me, as a deaf blind business owner, I've grown my business just without doing any audio, reels, or those trends. Like I've never done any of those things. Like ever, I'm not doing a dance in front of the camera. Like I've grown my Instagram just by like being myself and just talking to the camera and signing as well. So yeah, like I'm just really excited that you and I got to connect because like our businesses complement each other. They support each other, and like you don't have to be like, although I admit I want to be a six-figure business owner, but there's also no shame in not wanting that either. If you want to just make just over six figures and not have an agency, that's totally cool as well. Right? Because that has always given me my entire business. Like I've been in business for 8 years. And I'm like, I don't really want to hire people. That's like so much pressure, right?
Yeah. Well, it was something that I really like about Jess's Ordinary Business Summit. Like it's all about kind of how things are done in the like quote non-flashy way, you know? And so anyone listening, if you are available early April to go and check it out, like it's all virtual, it's online, watch it from the comfort of your own at-home office. And definitely check it out. There's going to be some really good talks. Erin and I are talking, a number of other really good conversations happening too. So you can see how things are done. That again, isn't necessarily the big flashy, make 7 figures in 5 minutes working not at all during the week.
Like, and that's even like, I feel like it's getting worse now.
Yes.
Like it's making me crazy. It's just like, so it's really like gratifying to be around other business owners that feel like we're not doing things flashy. We are doing things the way that works for us. We're not trying to get rich in 5 minutes. We know that's just not the case. It's just like we're ordinary business owners, but we all have something special.
Exactly.
Done. Awesome. All right. It was great talking to you. And we hope to see you all at the Ordinary Business Summit. Let me see.